The void shimmered where no shimmer should exist. Between the stars that burned coldly in the merciless black of the Imperium's galaxy, reality folded in ways that made astropaths scream and navigators weep blood into their third eyes. Something had broken through. Not from the warp, not from the immaterium where demons dwelled, but from somewhere else entirely. Something impossible. On the bridge of the Imperial cruiser Fervent Decree, Captain Alan Thorne gripped the rail of his command throne as warning runes flashed crimson across every console. "Report," he demanded, voice steady despite the tremor that ran through the ship's hull. "Unknown anomaly, sir," voxed the sensorium officer. "Readings suggest a breach in real space, but there is no corresponding warp signature." Than's augment eye word as it focused on the main view screen. Magnify. The image shifted, zoomed, clarified. Floating in the void was a man. Just a man. Bald head, expressionless face, yellow body glove with white cape billowing behind him as though caught in a terrestrial wind rather than the absolute vacuum of space. No void suit, no life support, nothing in the Emperor's name, then whispered, making the sign of the Aquila across his chest. "What manner of Xenos is this?" The figure turned, seeming to notice the Imperial vessel for the first time. He raised a hand in casual greeting. "Open a Vox channel," Than ordered. Before the communication officer could comply, the man vanished, not in a blur of motion or a teleport flare, but simply gone between one augmented heartbeat and the next. Full sensor sweep. Find it. Than commanded, klaxons wailed. Warning runes blazed from emergency red to catastrophic magenta. "Sir," the sensorium officer's voice cracked, "he is inside the ship." In the main hangar deck of the Fervent Decree, the strange visitor stood amidst a ring of shocked tech priests and naval armsmen. Their hellguns trained upon his unimpressive form. The man scratched his head, looking around with mild curiosity. "Hey," he said, voice flat and undramatic. "Is this Earth? Everything looks different." Magos Delphinius, hunched beneath his blood-red robes, extended a mechadendrite toward the intruder. Aspects reading scrolled across his augmented vision, making no sense whatsoever. "You stand aboard a vessel of the god, Emperor's Imperial Navy." The tech priest intoned through his vocalizer. "Identify your species and purpose." The man blinked. "I'm Saitama, human, just a hero for fun." The hellguns did not waver. The armsmen did not lower their weapons. Magos Delphinius processed this declaration, searching his data stacks for reference to any hero cults operating in this sector. The search returned null results. "This vessel is bound for the hive world of Veus Magna." Delphinius stated, "You will be contained and delivered to the proper authorities there for examination and judgment." Saitama shrugged. "Sure, whatever." 300 kilometers beneath the tainted skies of Veus Magna, in the depths of Hive Terte, something terrible was brewing. The Underhive always bred horrors, but the magnitude of this particular horror had yet to be comprehended by the planetary authorities. Greenskin spores carried on the toxic winds from the waste marshes outside the hive had found fertile ground in the moisture-slick walls of the forgotten sublevels. For 3 standard Terran years they had grown, multiplied, matured. The first Orc boys had emerged 6 months ago, crumping and stomping their way through the indigenous gangs and mutant tribes. Now a full-blown war festered in the bowels of Hive Tertius, led by a particularly cunning war boss who called himself Grimskull Darhammer. The first the upper hive became aware of the infestation was when level 219 fell silent. All Vox transmissions ceased. Manufacturum output flatlined. Tax collection teams failed to return. When the Adeptus Arbiters finally sent in an investigation force, they found only green splattered corridors and crude glyphs carved into the walls. By the time the Fervent Decree achieved orbit around Veus Magna, the green skin uprising had consumed 4 more levels and was spreading horizontally through adjacent sectors. The Planetary Defense Force had established a cordon at level 214, but their heavy stubbers and lasguns were proving inadequate against the crude but effective Orcish weaponry. Governor Lux Hellbane stood in his strategium, surrounded by holithic projections of the affected areas. His face was ashen beneath his golden laurels. "How long until the guard reinforcements arrive?" he asked his military adjutant. 3 standard days, my lord," the woman replied, her uniform immaculate despite the crisis. "The 84th Cadian have been rerouted from the Gehenna campaign." Hellbane nodded grimly. "And can we hold that long?" The adjutant's silence was answer enough. The governor turned to the third person in the room, a tall figure in a high cold coat of deepest black. Inquisitor Mortin Hellbrandt of the Ordo Xenos watched the tactical display with cold, calculating eyes. "I have reviewed the reports from the Fervent Decree," Hellbrandt said, voice soft, yet carrying an edge sharper than any power sword. "This anomalous individual they encountered. I want him." "With respect, Lord Inquisitor," Hellbane protested, "we face an orcish uprising that threatens the entire hive cluster. Surely your attention would be better focused on do not presume to direct my attention." Governor Hellbrandt cut him off. "The Xenos infestation is a known quantity. This stranger is not. In the calculus of threats to the Imperium, the unknown always carries greater weight." The governor swallowed his objection and bowed his head. "As you wish, my lord. Excellent. Have the stranger brought to the Spear of Judgment." Hellbrandt referred to his personal vessel currently docked at the orbital tether. "I will interrogate him personally." The Inquisitor turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Governor, do try to keep your hive intact until the guard arrives. The paperwork for planetary extinction is so tiresome." Saitama sat in a holding cell aboard the orbital tether station, staring at the wall with a bored expression. They had taken his gloves but left him his yellow suit and white cape. The cell was designed to hold the most dangerous criminals awaiting transfer to orbital prison barges constructed of adamantium and protected by void shield generators. But such precautions seemed excessive for this unremarkable-looking man. The door hissed open. A squad of soldiers in black carapace armour entered, las guns at the ready. Behind them came Inquisitor Hellbrandt's psychic hood framing his gaunt face. "So the Inquisitor said you claim to be human?" Saitama looked up. "Yeah." "From Terra Earth?" "Yeah. Though everything looks different here." Helbra's eyes narrowed. "And you call yourself a hero for fun?" Saitama corrected with a shrug. "It's just a hobby." The Inquisitor circled the seated man, studying him from every angle. "You survived in the void of space without protection. You bypassed the Geller fields and void shields of an Imperial cruiser without effort. These are not the capabilities of any human I have encountered in my long service to the Emperor." Saitama scratched his ear. "I just do a lot of training. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every day." A cold smile touched Hellbrand's lips. "I see. And this regime granted you the power to survive in vacuum?" "I guess so." The Inquisitor stopped his pacing. "There are 3 possibilities before me. 1. You're a Xenos infiltrator with exceptional mimetic abilities. 2. You're a warp entity manifested in physical form. 3. You're something else entirely. Perhaps a perpetual or some other aberration of the human genome." Saitama blinked. "Okay. To determine which, I will need to conduct a thorough examination." "You will." An urgent tone sounded from Hellbrand's wrist communicator. He activated it with a touch. "My lord," came a breathless voice, "the Greenkins have breached the level 214 cordon. They are streaming upward through all primary access routes. Casualty reports are catastrophic." The Inquisitor's face darkened. "Deploy the Adeptus Arbits reserves. Authorization Hellbrand Omega-7. Sir, the Arbites precincts on levels 210 through 213 have already fallen. We are monitoring Vox traffic from survivor groups, but organized resistance has collapsed." Hellbrand's jaw tightened. "What of the orbital defenses?" "Operational, my lord. But Governor Hellbane refuses to authorize their use against the hive itself. He claims too many loyal Imperial citizens would perish." "Sentimental fool," the Inquisitor muttered. Throughout this exchange, Saitama had been watching with growing interest. "So, there's a fight going on?" he asked. Hellbrandt glanced at him, irritation flashing across his features. "Yes, a Xenos infestation threatens this world, but that is not your concern." Saitama stood up, stretching casually. "Actually, that sounds like exactly my thing. Monsters threatening people. That's hero work. You will remain here until I have determined your nature and intent," Hellbrandt stated coldly. "Nah," Saitama replied. "I'm going to go check this out." Before anyone could react, the bald man simply walked forward. The adamantium wall in front of him crumpled like parchment. The void shield flared and died. Alarms blared throughout the station. After him, Hellbrandt shouted, but Saitama was already gone. In the upper reaches of Hive Terrace, terror reigned. Greenkin hordes poured upward through transit tubes and cargo elevators, slaughtering everything in their path. PDF troopers fired disciplined volleys that cut down the first waves of orc boys, but for each one that fell, 3 more scrambled over the corpses, roaring with bloodlust. Commissioner Thade stood atop a barricade of overturned cargo haulers, bolt pistol in one hand, chainsword in the other. "Stand fast, men of Verus," he bellowed over the den of battle for the Emperor and the Hive. A massive form pushed through the orcish ranks. Warboss Grimskull Duster Hammer stood 3 men tall, his crude power armor festooned with trophies torn from fallen PDF officers. In one massive claw he gripped a makeshift hammer crafted from the drive housing of a Lehman Russ battle tank. "Wah!" the warboss roared, and the cry was taken up by thousands of orcish throats. Commissioner Thade raised his bolt pistol and fired. The mass-reactive shell struck Grimskull square in the chest, detonating against his armor in a flash of smoke and flame. When it cleared, the warboss stood unharmed, laughing. "Puny! Ume!" Grimskull growled, raising his hammer high. "I was going to smash this hive. Denny's going to smash all the Yuva hives. Denny is going to build me the biggest rock you ever seen and fly to the stars tar-smashed M2. The green skin charged forward. PDF troopers scattered in terror. Commissioner Teddy stood his ground, chainsword revving defiantly as he prepared for certain death. A yellow blur flashed between them. Saitama stood before the charging warboss, hands casually at his sides. He looked up at the massive green skin with mild curiosity. "So, you're the monster causing all the trouble," he said. Grimskull skidded to a halt, beady red eyes widening in surprise, then narrowing with savage glee at the sight of this new opponent. "And who's you supposed to be? Some kind of weird boy in a funny suit?" Saitama shrugged. "Just a guy who's a hero for fun." The orcs behind their leader began to laugh, a sound like grinding metal and breaking bones. Grimskull raised his massive hammer. "Well, fun's over, Baldy." The hammer swung down with force enough to shatter Ferrocrete. Saitama raised one hand and caught it with his palm. The shockwave of the impact blew back PDF troopers and orcs alike, shattering nearby viewports and causing dust to rain from the hive ceiling hundreds of meters above. Grimskull stared in disbelief. The bold human held the hammer effortlessly, his expression unchanged. "That all you got?" Saitama asked. With a roar of fury, the warboss ripped his hammer free and swung again, putting all his considerable strength behind the blow. Again, Saitama caught it, this time with just his index finger. "You're pretty strong," Saitama acknowledged, "but not that strong." The bald hero cocked his fist back. Normal punch. His fist shot forward, not with blinding speed or visible effort, but with the casual motion of someone swatting an insect. It connected with Grimskull's chest. For a moment, nothing happened. The warboss looked down at the small fist pressed against his armor, confused. Then reality caught up. Grimskull Darhammer exploded not in gore and viscera, but in a perfect cone of disintegration that extended behind him for 300 meters, vaporizing dozens of orcs in his wake and carving a perfect circular tunnel through 6 levels of the hive structure. Silence fell. PDF troopers and orcs alike stood frozen in shock. Saitama lowered his fist, looking slightly disappointed. A man, one punch again. The remaining orcs broke first. Their warboss, destroyer of hive levels and scourge of the underhive, had been obliterated with a single blow. They turned and fled, trampling each other in their haste to escape this yellow-suited doom. Commissioner Thade stared at Saitama, his bolt pistol hanging forgotten at his side. "Emperor, preserve us," he whispered. "What are you?" Saitama scratched his bald head. "I told you already. Just a hero." Word of the miracle in Hive Tertus spread through Veus Magna like a fever. The Vox networks, both official and illegal, buzzed with tales of the yellow-suited savior who had defeated the orc warboss with one punch. Picked captures from surveillance servitors made their way from data slate to data slate. In the worker dormitories and noble spires alike, people spoke in hushed tones of the bald hero sent by the Emperor to deliver them. In his sanctum, deep within the governor's palace, Inquisitor Hellbrant reviewed the footage for the 12th time. His face remained impassive, but the tightness around his eyes betrayed his concern. "Analysis?" he asked the robed figure standing beside his chair. Margot's biologist therein bowed his augment head. "The data is inconclusive, Lord Inquisitor. The subject demonstrates strength beyond even a Statis capability. No known human mutation or enhancement could produce such results. Could he be a psyker? Some form of biomantic amplification? Negative. Psychic activity monitors showed no warp disturbance during the event." Hellbrand tapped a finger against his chin. a perpetual then. There are legends of such beings throughout Imperial history. It is possible, the Magos admitted, but even perpetuals do not typically display such physical capabilities. The Inquisitor stood, pacing the length of his sanctum. Whatever he is, he represents a potential threat to Imperial stability. The common folk already whisper that he is a messenger of the Emperor. Give it a week and they will proclaim him a living saint. What are your orders, my lord? Helbrin stopped before a stained glass window depicting the God Emperor enthroned in glory. Find him. Monitor him. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. I want kill teams on standby, but they are to maintain distance. And if he proves hostile, a cold smile touched the Inquisitor's lips. Then we will see if the official assassin can succeed where an Orc war boss failed. In the days that followed, an uneasy peace settled over Veus Magna. The surviving Orcs retreated to the deepest levels of the Underhive. Leaderless and disorganized, the 84th Kadon arrived and established a security cordon, but found little resistance. It was as though the greenskin will to fight had been broken along with their war boss. Saitama, meanwhile, wandered the Middle Hive districts, seemingly oblivious to the impact of his actions. He stopped petty crimes when he encountered them, helped citizens lift heavy loads, and ate prodigious amounts of whatever food was offered to him. The people flocked to him, reaching out to touch his white cape as though it were a holy relic. Behind him, always watching from the shadows, moved the agents of Inquisitor Hellbrand. They recorded his every movement, every word, every seemingly impossible feat of strength or speed. And they were not the only ones watching. In the Immaterium, in that churning hell sea of emotion and thought that lay parallel to real space, something stirred. The psychic echo of Saitama's impossible power created ripples in the warp. Ripples that drew the attention of hungry entities. Demons of the ruinous powers turned their gaze upon Veus Magna, sensing opportunity in the faith and awe the bald hero inspired. On the 8th day after Saitama's arrival, a new ship appeared in orbit around Veus Magna. The Adeptus Mechanicus vessel, Truth of Mars, slid into position beside the orbital tether. Its arcane sensors focused intently on the hive world below. Aboard this vessel, Archmagos Dominus Veneratus IX reviewed the data transmitted by Magos biologist Theron. His consciousness distributed across both his heavily augmented physical form, and the cognition engines of his ship processed the information at speeds no purely organic mind could match. Fascinating, he announced, the word emerging from his vocalizer as both spoken Gothic and binary cant simultaneously. This specimen represents an efficiency of force application that approaches the theoretical maximum. His chief janitor bowed. The fabricator Locom has authorized full resources for this investigation. Lord, the specimen may represent a lost branch of Architect human enhancement. Indeed, prepare a recovery team. I want tissue samples, neural patterns, and full biomechanical stress testing. The janitor hesitated. Lord Inquisitor Hellbrand has claimed jurisdiction over the subject. Archmagos Veneratus made a sound that his ancient vocalizer rendered as a static-laced chuckle. The Inquisition seeks to contain threats, Janitor. The Mechanicus seeks to understand them. Our purposes need not conflict so long as we act with appropriate subtlety. As you command, Archmagos. In the Hablock district known locally as the Warren, Saitama sat on the edge of a roof, legs dangling over a 1,000-meter drop to the lower hive levels. Beside him sat a young woman named Kalia, a hive ganganger who had appointed herself his guide to Veus Magna. So, you really don't remember how you got here? She asked, passing him a ration bar. Saitama took it with a nod of thanks. Not really. I was chasing this weird monster back home. It could make portals or something. I followed it through one and then I was floating in space. He bit into the ration bar and made a face. This tastes terrible, Kaya laughed. Best we got unless you've got script for upper hive cuisine. Better than nothing, Saitama admitted, continuing to eat. Anyway, that ship found me and then I was here. The ganganger girl studied his profile. And you're not worried about getting back home? Saitama shrugged. It'll work out. It always does. Must be nice, Kaya said, gazing out at the smog-choked skyline of the hive. Being so strong, nothing can hurt you. It's boring, actually, Saitama replied. Back home, I was always looking for a good fight. Someone who could actually give me a challenge, but everyone goes down in one punch. Kaya's eyes widened. You want someone to hurt you, to make me feel something, feel alive. He finished the ration bar and crumpled the wrapper in his fist. When you're too strong, The thrill is gone. Before Kalia could respond, a scream echoed from the streets below, then another and another, until the air was filled with the sounds of terror and agony. Saitama stood. Sounds like trouble. He leapt from the roof, his white cape billowing behind him as he plummeted toward the source of the disturbance. Kalia watched him go, then scrambled for the access ladder. She would follow as she always did. Someone needed to witness his deeds. The street below had transformed into a scene from a nightmare. The very air had split open, reality peeling back to reveal the sting madness of the warp. Through this wound in the material universe poured entities that defied description. Demons of the ruinous powers manifested in physical form. A greater daemon of Khorne led the charge, a towering entity of muscle and brass armor, its canine head crowned with horns that scraped the ferrocrete ceiling of the Hablock corridor. Behind it came lesser demons, a chittering, howling tide of unreality given flesh. PDF troopers stationed in the area opened fire, their lasguns spitting ruby beams that dissipated harmlessly against the greater daemon's warp-forged hide. The creature roared with laughter and swung its massive axe, cleaving through 3 soldiers and the ferrocrete wall behind them. Saitama landed in the middle of the street directly in the daemon's path. He straightened, dusting off his yellow suit. "Hey," he said, looking up at the towering horror. "You need to stop that." The greater daemon halted, its fiery eyes narrowing as it beheld this small, unimpressive human standing before it. It inhaled deeply, tasting the air with senses beyond the material. "What is this?" the demon's voice thundered, shaking dust from the walls. "I sense no fear, no anger, no hate. What manner of mortal are you?" Saitama shrugged. "Just a guy who's a hero for fun." The daemon threw back its head and laughed, a sound that caused blood to leak from the ears of nearby humans. "A hero? There are no heroes in this universe. Little one, only pawns in the great game." "Yeah, whatever," Saitama replied, scratching his ear. "Look, I'm going to have to ask you to go back where you came from. You're scaring people." The demon's laughter cut off abruptly. It leveled its burning gaze at the bald man. "You dare command me? I am Cathrax, the Worldbreaker, blessed of Khorne, harvester of skulls." Saitama nodded. "Okay, so are you going to leave, or do I have to make you?" With a roar that cracked the ferrocrete beneath their feet, Kargathrax swung its massive axe. The blade forged in the blood god's own furnaces and quenched in the souls of 1,000 space marines descended upon Saitama with apocalyptic force. The bald hero raised his hand and caught the blade between his thumb and forefinger. Silence fell. The demon stared in disbelief. Its lesser kindred froze in their advance, sensing that something impossible had occurred. "Is that all?" Saitama asked, sounding disappointed. "I thought daemons were supposed to be strong." Karathrax yanked its axe back, but Saitama's grip held firm. The daemon snarled and released the weapon, materializing a massive brass sword in its other hand. "Die!" it bellowed, thrusting the blade directly at Saitama's heart. The sword shattered upon impact with the yellow suit. Shards of warp matter scattered across the street, dissolving into ectoplasmic goo where they landed. Saitama sighed. This is getting repetitive. He flicked his finger against the demon's knee. The limb exploded, sending the massive entity crashing to the ground. Karathrax howled in pain and rage, a sound that drove nearby humans to their knees with bleeding eyes. "I'll give you one more chance," Saitama said, standing over the fallen daemon. "Go back to wherever you came from. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows." The demon spat, its form already beginning to regenerate. "Only that it flows, your blood will flow." Missouri Rut Saitama tilted his head. "I don't think so. Serious series. Serious punch." His fist moved. Not a casual tap this time, but a blow delivered with actual intent. It connected with the demon's chest. Reality itself seemed to bend around the point of impact. The greater daemon did not simply disintegrate as the Orc warboss had. It unraveled. Its very essence scattered not just across physical space, but across the immaterium as well. The shockwave continued outward, striking the warp rift that had allowed the demonic incursion. The rift shuddered, convulsed, and then collapsed in upon itself with a sound like the death scream of gods. The remaining demons, cut off from their source of power, dissolved into moes of fading unreality. Silence descended upon the street. The surviving PDF troopers stared in awe. From a side alley, Kalia emerged, her face pale but her eyes shining with vindication. "Did you see?" she shouted to the stunned soldiers. "Did you all see? He destroyed a greater daemon with one punch. He is the Emperor's champion." The troopers fell to their knees, making the sign of the Aquila. Behind them, civilians emerged from hiding places, dropping to their knees as well. Saitama scratched his head, looking uncomfortable. "Guys, it's not that big a deal." But his words were drowned out by the chanting that began to rise from the assembled crowd. "Saint of the One Punch, Saint of the One Punch." High above in the orbital tether station, Inquisitor Hellbrant watched the scene unfold through the eyes of his surveillance servitors. His expression remained impassive, but his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of his command console. "This changes everything," he whispered. From the shadows behind him, a figure materialized, clad in adaptive chameleonic armor and bearing the distinctive neural shunt ports of the official assassin's Collius temple. The assassin awaited orders. "Not yet," Hellbrant said without turning. "Our guest has just done us the service of 10, closing a warp rift that might have consumed the entire hive. More importantly, he has revealed a crucial weakness." The assassin tilted its head in silent question. "He can be baited," the Inquisitor explained. "His hero complex compels him to respond to threats, and he is building connections to the local population." A cold smile touched his lips. "When the time comes, we will know exactly how to control him." The next 3 days brought a strange calm to Veus Magna. The failed demonic incursion had been contained. The Orc threat had been neutralized, and the people of the Hive went about their imperial duties with renewed vigor. Tales of the bold saint spread from Hablock to Manufactory, from Noble Spire to Underhive Den. Crude icons bearing Saitama's likeness began to appear in worker shrines alongside images of the God Emperor. Governor Hellbane summoned his council to address the situation. Array before him were the highest authorities on Veus Magna, the Cardinal's representative, the Lord Marshal of the PDF, the Senal of the Merchant Guild, and representatives from the Administratum and Adeptus Mechanicus. Inquisitor Hellbrant stood apart, as was his prerogative. "This cult of personality growing around the stranger concerns me," the governor began. "The ecclesiarchy reports that attendance at official services has dropped as people gather instead to share tales of the Saint of the One Punch." The Cardinal's representative, a severe woman in ornate robes, nodded grimly. "It is bordering on heresy, my lord. The man has made no claim to imperial sanction, yet the masses treat him as a living saint. Because he acts like one," the Lord Marshal counted. "He destroyed an Orcware and banished a greater daemon. In the eyes of the common folk, what else could he be but the Emperor's instrument? The question," Inquisitor Hellbrant interjected, "is not what he appears to be, but what he actually islanded and what threat he poses to imperial rule." All eyes turned to the black-clad figure. "Have your investigations yielded results, Lord Inquisitor?" the governor asked. "Some," Hellbrant replied. "We know he possesses strength beyond anything recorded in Imperial archives. We know he can survive in the vacuum of space. We know he can destroy warp entities with physical force alone, something that should be theoretically impossible without psychic ability or sanctified weaponry. Then he is a miracle." The Cardinal's representative breathed. "Or an abomination," Hellbrant countered. "Something the human form was never meant to contain." The Mechanicus representative, a hunched tech priest with multiple augment limbs, made a sound like gears grinding. The Archmagos' Dominus believes the subject represents a unique example of architect-human enhancement. He requests that the specimen be reminded to Mechanicus custody for thorough examination. Helbra's eyes narrowed. The subject falls under inquisitorial jurisdiction. The potential threat he represents, a thundercrack, interrupted him as the doors to the council chamber burst open. Saitama strolled in, followed by a breathless Kalia and a squad of PDF troopers who had apparently failed to stop them. "Sorry to barge in," Saitama said, glancing around the opulent chamber with mild interest. "But I heard you guys were talking about me, and I thought I should probably be here for that." Governor Hellbane rose from his throne, face flushed with anger. "This is an outrage. Guards, remove these intruders immediately." The PDF troopers moved forward, reluctantly, clearly unwilling to lay hands on the man they now revered as a saint. Saitama waved them off. It's fine. I just wanted to clear something up." He turned to face the assembled dignitaries. "I'm not a saint or whatever. I'm just a guy who does hero work for fun." Back home, I was actually pretty low-ranked in the Hero Association. "Hero Association," the Inquisitor echoed, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Explain this organization." Saitama shrugged. It's just a group that keeps track of monsters and assigns heroes to deal with them. They rank heroes based on strength and popularity. I was only B-class for a long time. Kalia, who had been hovering nervously behind Saitama, stepped forward. My lords, the people don't care about rankings or associations. They care that when demons came through the warp, he stood against them. When the orcs threatened to overrun the hive, he stopped them. The girl speaks truth, the Lord Marshal acknowledged. In 3 days, this man has done more to secure Veus Magna than a company of space marines could have achieved in a month. Governor Hellbane sank back into his throne, suddenly looking very tired. What do you want, Saitama? Why have you come to my world? I didn't exactly choose to come here, Saitama replied. But since I am here, I figure I might as well help out. That's what heroes do, he scratched his bald head. Though to be honest, the monsters here are pretty disappointing. One punch, and they're done. A cold silence fell over the chamber. The implications of his casual dismissal of threats that had terrorized the Imperium for millennia hung in the air like a physical weight. One punch, Inquisitor Hellbrant repeated softly. You dispatched a greater daemon of Khorne with a single blow. Do you understand what that means? The most elite warriors of the Imperium, space marines who have trained for centuries, would struggle to achieve such a victory, and many would die in the attempt. Saitama nodded. Yeah, I get that. It's just, I was hoping for more of a challenge. The tech priest optical augmentics word as they focused on the bold hero. Fascinating. The subject displays psychological disconnection from its own capabilities. This suggests the enhancement process may have affected cognitive function as well. I'm not enhanced, Saitama said, growing slightly irritated. I just trained really hard. What kind of training could possibly, the governor began, but was cut off by a sudden shrill alarm that echoed throughout the chamber. The Lord Marshal activated his wrist-mounted Vox unit. Report. Multiple vessels have translated into real space, my lord, came the panicked reply. Configuration matches known Tyrannid bioships, at least 3 hive ships with attendant escort organisms. They are on an attack vector for Veus Magna. The blood drained from Governor Hellbane's face. Throne of Terror. We have no fleet assets in position to intercept. The orbital defences cannot handle a force of that magnitude. How long? Hellbrand demanded. Hours, my lord. Perhaps less. Saitama looked around at the suddenly grim faces. What's a tyrannid? It was Kalia who answered, her voice hollow with fear. The Great Devourer. A Xenoshiv mind that consumes entire worlds, breaking them down to their constituent biomass to fuel its endless expansion. They are the hunger at the edge of the galaxy. The Cardinal's representative intoned, a Xenos scourge beyond comprehension. Saitama's expression brightened slightly. So they're strong. Inquisitor Hellbrand fixed him with a penetrating stare. They have consumed thousands of worlds. Entire sectors have been lost to their advance, and now they have come for Vis Magna. Can you stop them? Governor Hellbane asked, a desperate edge to his voice. Saitama shrugged. I can try. Sounds like it might actually be fun. On the observation deck of the orbital tether, Saitama stood before the armoured viewport, gazing out at the approaching horror. The bioships of Hive Fleet Behemoth filled the void, their organic forms pulsing with malevolent life. The largest were the size of small moons, their chitinous hulls bristling with bioweapons that leaked corrosive spores into the vacuum. Behind him stood Inquisitor Hellbrant, Magos Bologus Terran, and a squad of Tempestus scions in full void sealed carapace armour. The hive ships will launch boarding spores, Hellbrant explained. Countless thousands of them, each containing warrior organisms. The orbital defences will intercept some, but many will reach the hive cities. Meanwhile, the largest vessels will position themselves to begin consuming the planet itself. Saitama nodded, watching the approaching armada with interest. So I need to take out the big ones first. You cannot possibly, therein began, then fell silent as he reconsidered. The largest bioships have defensive systems that would destroy even a battleship of the Imperial Navy. Their outer hulls can withstand sustained bombardment from macro cannons. Okay, Saitama said, so they're tough. That's good. Before anyone could respond, the hero placed his hand against the armoured viewport. With a casual push, the adamantium glass composite shattered. The explosive decompression sucked him out into the void along with anything not bolted down on the observation deck. Emergency void shields slammed into place a moment later, preventing further atmosphere loss. The Tempesta scions scrambled to secure the room, several of them pulling Inquisitor Hellbrant and Margos the Wren to safety behind a bulkhead. Throne of Terror. One of the scions breathed, watching through the newly formed void shield as Saitama floated in space, white cape billowing impossibly in the vacuum. Is he mad? Hellbrand's eyes narrowed number. He is exactly what I feared. A power beyond Imperial control. In the cold void between Veus Magna and the approaching Tyrannid fleet, Saitama oriented himself toward the largest bioship. He tucked his arms to his sides and somehow, defying all laws of physics, propelled himself forward. His acceleration was not gradual but immediate, as though the concept of inertia simply did not apply to him. Aboard the orbital defense stations, targeting coitators tracked his impossible progress. Machine spirits humming in confusion at the readings they were receiving. Tech priests muttered binary prayers of appeasement as their instruments registered velocities that should have reduced any physical object to its component atoms through friction alone. Saitama streaked toward the Tyrannid hive ship like a yellow comet. The vast bioorganism sensed his approach, though its alien consciousness could not comprehend what manner of threat this tiny speck represented. Defensive spore mines burst from specialized orifices, creating a cloud of living explosives in his path. The bald hero plowed through them without slowing. Each mine detonated upon contact, wreathing him in bioplasma and toxic spores that would have dissolved adamantium. The explosions did not even singe his cape. The hive ship's outer hull came into view, a grotesque landscape of chitinous plates and pulsing veins the size of Imperial cruisers. Specialized bioweapons turned to track Saitama, spitting globs of corrosive acid and hypervelocity bone shard projectiles. They might as well have been gentle rain for all the effect they had. Saitama raised his fist as he approached the colossal organism. Serious series. Serious punch. His fist connected with the hive ship's hull. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality caught up with the force of the impact. The hive ship did not merely break apart. It did not explode. It ceased to exist as a coherent entity. From the point of impact, a cone of pure annihilation propagated through the vast organism, transmuting its impossible biology into component atoms, then into energy. The blast continued outward, catching two nearby escort biohips in its radius, and reducing them to rapidly expanding clouds of superheated gas. On the defense stations and in the hive cities below, millions watched in stunned silence. The largest vessel of the Tyrannid fleet, a horror that could have withstood the combined firepower of an Imperial battle group for days, had been destroyed with a single blow. But the hive mind was nothing if not adaptive. The remaining biohips altered their approach, spreading out to create a wider attack front. From their undercarriages, countless thousands of boarding spores began to launch, a biological meteor shower aimed at the vulnerable world below. Saitama turned in the void, assessing the new threat. He could destroy the hive ships one by one, but the spores were already on their way. Destroying them individually would be like trying to stop a sandstorm grain by grain. The hero's expression changed. For the first time since his arrival in this universe, he looked truly serious. Consecutive normal punches. His arms blurred, not simply moving quickly, but existing in multiple places simultaneously, as though the concept of position had become optional. Each punch sent a pressure wave through the vacuum, a ripple in spacetime itself that intercepted the descending spores and detonated them harmlessly in the void. Thousands of spores burst in sequence, creating a pyroconic display that outshone the local star. The defense station's augurs registered the impossible as a single human figure somehow produced more kinetic energy than their combined weapon systems could have generated in a standard year. But the Tyrannid hive mind was vast, its resources nearly limitless. For every spore destroyed, 10 more launched. They began to slip through the barrage, streaking toward the hive cities below. On the surface of Veus Magna, warning sirens wailed, PDF forces and the 84th Cadon took up defensive positions around critical infrastructure. Civilians huddled in shelters, praying to the God Emperor for deliverance. In the uppermost spire of Hive Primus, Governor Hellbane prepared the codes that would activate the planetary self-destruct system, a final resort to deny the Tyrannids their prize. Inquisitor Hellbrant stood in the strategium, watching tactical displays that showed the first spores making planet fall. His face betrayed no emotion, as reports of Tyrannid organisms emerging began to flood the Vox networks. "The Saint will save us," insisted Cardinal Droven, who had joined the command staff. "You saw what he did to the hive ship." "The Saint," Hellbrant replied coldly, "cannot be everywhere at once. Even his power has limits." The Cardinal's eyes flashed. Blasphemy. "He is the Emperor's instrument. He is an anomaly," the Inquisitor countered, "and like all anomalies he will eventually be contained." Before the Cardinal could respond, a new alert sounded. The tactical display showed a massive energy signature approaching the planet at impossible speed. "What in the Emperor's name is that?" Helbane demanded. Magos the Who had been silently communing with the Sensorium Coitators looked up. "It is him. The anomaly. He is returning." Saitama streaked through the atmosphere, his yellow suit unaffected by the friction that would have incinerated any other object. He had destroyed the remaining hive ships, but not before thousands of spores had escaped his barrage. Now he could see them impacting across the planet's surface, each one disgorging tyrannid warrior organisms that immediately began to ravage everything in their path. The hero changed course, aiming for the largest concentration of Xenos bioforms. He landed in what had once been a noble district of Hive Secundis, now transformed into an alien hellscape. The spires had been coated in rapidly growing digestive pools, the streets filled with sting hormigants and lumbering carnifexes. At the centre of the infestation rose a massive tyrannid creature, a hive tyrant directing the swarm through its psychic connection to the distant hive mind. The Xenos sensed his arrival. Hundreds of organisms turned as one, their alien senses registering this new threat. Through the synaptic network, the hive mind analysed the strange being that had destroyed its bioships. It recognised power, but not the nature of that power. It recognised threat, but not how to counter it. The hive tyrant let out a piercing shriek that shattered the remaining windows in nearby spires. In response, the entire swarm surged towards Saitama. The bald hero stood his ground. "You guys are supposed to be tough, right? Show me what you've got." A wave of hormigants reached him first, their sting talons blurring as they struck. Saitama moved through them casually, each tap of his fist reducing an organism to pulp. He wasn't even using named attacks, merely swatting the creatures aside like insects. Larger warrior forms closed in, affects, a living tank of Khitan and muscle, charged with earth-shaking steps. Saitama sidestepped its rush and flicked it with his finger. The massive creature exploded, showering the surrounding area with ichor and fragments of exoskeleton. The hive tyrant assessed the situation through the eyes of its dying brood. This enemy could not be overwhelmed by numbers. It could not be harmed by conventional bioweapons. The hive mind reached a conclusion. Adapt or die. The tyrant unleashed a psychic scream that caused blood to leak from the ears of any humans within a kilometre radius. Its body began to change, biomass flowing and restructuring as the hive mind implemented emergency adaptations. Its limbs elongated, its carapace thickened and rearranged into overlapping plates of a design never before seen in this splinter fleet. Most significantly, a new organ formed within its chest cavity, pulsing with psychic energy. Saitama watched the transformation with mild interest. "Hey, that's pretty cool. Are you powering up?" The hive tyrant completed its metamorphosis. It now stood twice its previous height, its form optimized based on the hive mind's analysis of Saitama's attacks. The new organ in its chest began to glow, channeling psychic energy directly from the shadow in the warp, the psychic presence of the hive mind itself. It charged, moving with impossible speed for something of its size. Its talons, now breathed in, crackling psychic energy that could shred reality itself, slashed at Saitama from multiple angles simultaneously. For the first time, the hero actually had to move to avoid being hit. He dodged backward, a look of surprise crossing his face as one talon grazed his yellow suit, tearing the fabric. "Huh?" Saitama said, glancing down at the tear. "You actually damaged my suit. That's new." The tyrant pressed its advantage, unleashing a barrage of bioplasma from specialized vents in its arms. The superheated matter splashed against Saitama, momentarily obscuring him in a cloud of steam and alien biochemicals. When the cloud cleared, the hero stood unharmed, though his expression had changed. The perpetual look of boredom was gone, replaced by something approaching excitement. "Okay," he said, "now we're getting somewhere." The tyrant charged again, but this time Saitama met it head-on. His fist connected with its chest directly over the newly formed psychic organ. The creature's enhanced carapace held for a fraction of a second before shattering. The psychic organ imploded, creating a feedback loop that travelled through the synaptic network, momentarily stunning every Tyranid organism on the planet. The hive tyrant staggered backward, its body already attempting to regenerate the damaged organ. But Saitama gave it no time to recover. Serious series, serious consecutive punches. His fists blurred beyond visual tracking, each blow hitting with precisely calculated force to maximize damage while containing the impact radius. The tyrant's enhanced body began to break down under the assault, chunks of biomass flying off with each impact until nothing remained but a rapidly dissolving puddle of organic matter. The death of the synaptic creature threw the remaining Tyranids into disarray. Without the guiding intelligence of the hive mind, they reverted to base instincts, attacking anything that moved, including each other. Saitama straightened, looking disappointed. That was almost interesting. For a second there, I thought you might actually give me a real fight. From the shadows of a half-digested hab block, a figure emerged, clad in the distinctive power armor of the Adeptus estates, but warped and mutated by long exposure to the warp. The Chaos Space Marine's armor bore the symbols of the Black Legion. His helmet was shaped into a snarling demonic visage, and warp fire danced along the edges of his power sword. Impressive display, mortal. The Chaos Marine's voice grated through his helmet's vox emitters. The Tyranids are mindless beasts for all their adaptability. But you face a true champion of chaos now. Saitama turned, raising an eyebrow. And you are? I am Lord Maphistan Vex, champion of the Black Legion, chosen of Abaddon, slayer of worlds. The Chaos Marine raised his power sword, which writhed with warp energies. I have watched your battles from the Immaterium. Your power has drawn the gaze of the ruinous powers themselves. Uh-huh, Saitama replied, looking unimpressed. So, you're here to fight me? Vex laughed, the sound distorted through his helmet. Fight you? Number, I am here to offer you the blessings of chaos. Join us and the galaxy will kneel before your might. The corpse, Emperor's Imperium, is dying. Be part of the new order that rises from its ashes. Saitama scratched his head. Yeah, I'm not really interested in that. I'm just a hero for fun. The Chaos Champion's posture stiffened. You refuse the gifts of the Dark Gods. Do you not understand what's being offered? Power beyond mortal comprehension. Immortality. Godhood. I'm already too strong, Saitama replied with a shrug. That's kind of my whole problem. Fury radiated from the Chaos Marine. Then die, fool. He lunged forward, his power sword aimed at Saitama's heart. The blade connected with the yellow suit and stopped dead. No penetration, no damage, just the absurd image of a Chaos Champion's most potent weapon, halted by what appeared to be ordinary fabric. Vex stared in disbelief. Impossible. This blade has tasted the blood of Space Marine chapter masters. It has severed the limbs of greater demons. Are you done? Saitama asked. Because there are still a lot of those bug things running around that I need to deal with. With a roar of rage, the Chaos Champion unleashed the full might of his warp-gifted powers. Dark energy erupted from his armor, coalescing into tentacles of pure corruption that sought to ensnare the bald hero. Simultaneously, he began to chant in a language that predated humanity. Words of power that could drive mortals insane. Saitama looked mildly annoyed. Serious series. Serious headbutt. He leaned forward slightly, his bald head connected with the Chaos Marine's demonic helmet. There was a sound like reality tearing. And then Lord Maphistan Vex, champion of the Black Legion, chosen of Abaddon, slayer of worlds, simply ceased to exist. Not killed, not destroyed, but erased so completely that even the warp retained no memory of his passing. The dark energies he had summoned dissipated like smoke in a strong wind. The echo of his unfinished chant faded to nothing. Saitama straightened his back. One punch again. Well, one headbutt still counts. In the days that followed, the remaining Tyranid organisms on Vus Magna were systematically hunted down and destroyed without the guiding intelligence of the hive mind. They were dangerous but ultimately manageable threats. The 84th Caden, supported by PDF forces and led by eyewitness accounts of the Saints' battles, cleared hive after hive of the Xenu's taint in orbit. Adeptus Mechanicus vessels arrived to study the unprecedented devastation Saitama had wrought upon the Tyranid biohips. Never before had a hive fleet been so utterly destroyed with such minimal Imperial losses. Tech priests gathered samples of Tyranid biomass for study, though many advocated for more direct examination of the being responsible. In the governor's palace, a council of a different sort gathered. Inquisitor Hellbrand had been joined by representatives from the Order Malus and Order Hereticus. Also present was a tall, stern figure in the distinctive power armour of the Grey Knights, the Emperor's secret weapon against demonic incursion. "The situation has grown beyond my authority alone," Hellbrand admitted to his colleagues. "The anomaly designated Saitama represents a potential threat category, beyond anything in Imperial records. The Grey Knight." Brother Captain Vortigern nodded gravely. "I have reviewed the battle footage. His ability to destroy warp entities with physical force alone defies explanation, even with our sanctified weapons and psychic abilities. My battle brothers would struggle to achieve what he accomplishes with casual ease. He has won the hearts and minds of the populace," added Inquisitor Morgana of the Ordo Hereticus. "The cult of personality growing around him threatens imperial religious doctrine. Already some whisper that he is not merely the Emperor's messenger, but his equal." "Heresy," Hellbrand agreed. "Yet his actions have saved this world from threats that might have overwhelmed even substantial Imperial forces." "The question remains," Brother Captain Vortigern said. "What is to be done with him?" The council chamber doors swung open. Saitama entered, accompanied as always by Kalia, who had somehow maintained her self-appointed position as his guide despite repeated attempts by Imperial authorities to separate them. "Sorry I'm late," Saitama said. "There was a riot in the Underhive, people fighting over food or something. I helped sort it out." The assembled Inquisitors and the Grey Knight rose to their feet, hands moving to weapons. The air in the chamber grew heavy with psychic potential as Brother Captain Vortigern prepared his gifts. Saitama raised his hands. "Woo, calm down. I just came to talk." "About what?" Hellbrand asked cautiously. "About going home," Saitama replied. "It's been fun and all, but I kind of miss my apartment, and my friend Genus is probably worried. Also, the monsters here are all kind of the same. Big, scary, lots of teeth or tentacles. It gets repetitive." The Inquisitors exchanged glances. "You wish to return to your own reality?" Inquisitor Morgana asked. "Yeah, you guys must have scientists or wizards or whatever who can figure out how to send me back, right?" Brother Captain Vortigern's stern features showed a flicker of confusion. "You truly wish to leave when you could rule this galaxy with your power?" Saitama blinked. "Rule? That sounds like a lot of paperwork." "No thanks. I just want to go back to being a hero for fun." A tense silence fell over the room. Then slowly, Inquisitor Hellbrand began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and built into a full-throated sound of genuine amusement, something none present had ever heard from the Dare Inquisitor before. "The greatest power our galaxy has ever witnessed," he said when he had regained his composure, "and all he wants is to go home to his apartment." "Is that so strange?" Saitama asked. "In this universe, yes," Hellbrand replied. "Power once gained is never willingly relinquished. It is hoarded, protected, used to dominate others. That is the way of things," Saitama shrugged. "Sounds exhausting indeed." The Inquisitor's expression grew thoughtful. "Very well. I will petition the Adeptus Mechanicus to investigate methods of opening a portal to your reality. Their coitators have been analysing the space-time disturbance that brought you here. In theory, the process could be reversed." "Great," Saitama said. "How long will that take? Months at least, perhaps years." The bald hero's shoulders slumped. "Oh, in the meantime," Hellbrand continued, "I propose an arrangement. You will continue to eliminate threats to this world and others nearby under the guidance of Imperial authorities. In return, the full resources of the Adeptus Mechanicus will be dedicated to finding you a way home. And what about the people calling me a saint and stuff? That's kind of weird." Brother Captain Vortigern stepped forward. "The Ecclesiarchy will manage the religious implications of your presence. It would not be the first time the Emperor has sent an unusual messenger to aid humanity in its darkest hour." Saitama considered this. "So I just keep punching monsters, and you guys work on sending me home?" "Precisely," Hellbrand confirmed. "Okay, I can do that." As Saitama and Kalia left the chamber, the Inquisitors and Grey Knight resumed their seats. They waited until the door had closed and Hellbrand had activated the room's psychic baffles before speaking again. "You have no intention of sending him home, do you?" Inquisitor Morgana asked quietly. Hellbrand's face was unreadable. The Imperium has never relinquished a weapon once acquired, particularly one of such devastating potential. "He is not a weapon," Brother Captain Vortigern observed. "He is a man. An impossible man, but a man nonetheless." "Everything and everyone serves the Emperor's purpose," Hellbrand replied. Whether they know it or not, the Grey Knight's expression darkened. Be careful, Inquisitor. Those who seek to control power beyond their understanding often find themselves destroyed by it. A risk I am prepared to take, Helbrun said, for the Imperium. In the grimy underhive tavern known as the Broken Aquila, Saitama sat at a corner table, nursing a mug of what the locals called recaf, but which bore little resemblance to coffee as he knew it. Across from him, Kalia watched with obvious concern. "You don't believe them, do you?" she asked quietly. "About sending you home?" Saitama shrugged. "Does it matter? I'll stick around for a while, help out. If they find a way, great. If not," he trailed off, staring into his mug. "If not, I'll figure something out." He looked up, meeting her gaze. "This place is pretty messed up, you know. Everyone's always fighting, dying for an emperor they've never seen, scared of everything. Back home, things weren't perfect, but at least people could live normal lives between monster attacks." Kalia's eyes widened at what bordered on heresy. "The Imperium is mankind's only shield against the darkness," she recited, though her tone lacked conviction. "Maybe," Saitama replied, "but it's a pretty lousy shield if it makes life not worth living for most people." Before Kalia could respond, the tavern door burst open. A PDF trooper staggered in, his uniform torn and bloody. "The Saint!" He gasped, spotting Saitama. "Praise the Emperor! I found you!" Saitama stood. "What's wrong?" "New contact in orbit," the trooper reported, struggling to catch his breath. "The Mechanicus ships say it's like nothing they've ever seen. Not Tyrannid, not Imperial, not any known Xenos classification." A spark of interest lit Saitama's eyes. Something new. "The Vox is going crazy with reports. They're calling it a cosmic entity." Saitama set down his mug. "Sounds promising. Where is it now?" "Descending through the upper atmosphere. The orbital defenses can't get a lock on it. It's like it exists partially out of phase with reality." For the first time since his arrival on Very Magna, a genuine smile spread across Saitama's face. "Now that sounds interesting." High above the tallest spire of Hive Primus, reality fractured. Not in the familiar nauseating way of a warp breach, but in a crystalline shattering that refracted light in impossible colours. Through this dimensional wound descended a being of cosmic proportions, its form constantly shifting between states of matter and energy. On the surface, millions looked up in terror and awe. PDF Vox operators reported mass panic, while priests of the ecclesiarchy led their congregations in desperate prayers to the Emperor. In the strategium of the governor's palace, tactical displays flickered and died, unable to process the readings from this impossible entity. Inquisitor Helbrant stood on the landing pad of the palace's highest spire, surrounded by Grey Knights and inquisitorial stormtroopers. Through magnoculars, he watched the cosmic entity's descent. "Emperor, protect us," he whispered. "What is that thing?" Brother Captain Vortigern, standing at his side, shook his head. "Not war-porn." "Something else? Something from beyond the boundaries of our universe, perhaps?" A yellow blur shot upward from the lower hive, streaking toward the descending entity. Saitama moving with purpose and something approaching eagerness. The cosmic entity halted its descent, hovering a kilometre above the highest spire. Its form stabilized into something vaguely humanoid, though composed of what appeared to be condensed starlight and dark matter. When it spoke, its voice resonated not through the air, but directly in the minds of every sentient being on the planet. "At last, I have found you, Saitama." The bald hero floated before the cosmic entity, arms crossed. "Do I know you? I am Cosmic Entity Karak, destroyer of dimensions, consumer of realities. You followed my avatar through the dimensional gateway. Now I have come to complete our battle." Saitama's eyes widened with recognition. "Oh, you're that weird portal monster I was chasing back home. You look different. This is my true form, Missouri RTL. The being you encountered was merely a probe sent to evaluate your universe's defenses. When you destroyed it, I became aware of your existence. So you came all this way just to fight me." For the first time, genuine excitement entered Saitama's voice. "Are you strong?" The cosmic entity's form pulsed with energy that sent psychic shockwaves across the planet. Psychers screamed and died as their minds overloaded. Even non-psychic humans felt the pressure like a migraine behind their eyes. "I have consumed galaxies, little one. I have extinguished stars for nourishment. I have battled entities that existed before your universe was born." "Sounds promising," Saitama said. But can you give me a real fight? Everyone here keeps talking big, but they all go down in one punch. The cosmic entity seemed to consider this. Perhaps I should demonstrate my power first. It extended what might have been an arm. A pulse of energy shot downward, striking one of the smaller hive cities on the planet's surface. The entire structure, home to millions of souls, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in fire and rubble, but erased from reality so completely that even the memories of it began to fade from the minds of survivors. That was but a fraction of my strength. Carrick boomed. "Shall we begin our true battle?" Saitama's expression hardened. Those were innocent people, irrelevant. "All life is fuel for my ascension." "You know," Saitama said, cracking his knuckles, "I was hoping for a good fight, but now I'm just going to end this quickly." The cosmic entity's form expanded, engulfing the space around Saitama in a miniature galaxy of destructive energy. You cannot harm what exists beyond physical reality. Missouri RTA. Within the swirling maelstrom of cosmic power, Saitama remained untouched, his yellow suit and white cape pristine. He looked around at the display with mild interest. Pretty lights. Is this supposed to hurt? The entity's form contracted, compressing around Saitama with force that would have crushed a neutron star to a singularity. Again, the hero showed no sign of discomfort. "Are you not even curious?" Carrick's mental voice held a note of frustration. "Do you not wonder how I found you across dimensions? How I breached the barriers between realities?" "Not really," Saitama replied. "I'm more interested in whether you can actually give me a challenge." The cosmic entity's form shifted again, taking on a more defined humanoid shape that mirrored Saitama's own, though composed of swirling cosmic energy and dark matter. "Then let us test your limits, champion of creating Solve, Earth." It threw a punch, not a physical blow, but a strike that crossed dimensions that attacked not just Saitama's body, but the very concept of his existence. The space-time continuum around them groaned under the strain. Saitama caught the punch with his bare hand. "Not bad," he admitted. "I actually felt that." The cosmic entity recoiled in shock. "Impossible. No mortal vessel can withstand the touch of my true form. Yeah, I get that a lot." Saitama drew back his fist. "My turn. Serious. Serious punch." The blow connected with the cosmic entity's core. For a moment, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the entity's form began to crack, fissures of ordinary space-time spreading through its cosmic substance like fractures in glass. "What? What are you?" Carrick's mental voice was fading. "I told you already," Saitama replied. "Just a hero for fun." The cosmic entity shattered, not exploded, not disintegrated, but broke apart like a mirror struck by a hammer. Each fragment contained a reflection of its whole, each one screaming in disbelief as they scattered across dimensions, vanished from this reality by the force of Saitama's blow. The psychic pressure that had weighed on the planet vanished. The impossible colours faded from the sky. Reality reasserted itself, though the hive city that had been erased remained gone, a wound in the world that would never truly heal. Saitama floated back down to the landing pad where Inquisitor Hellbrunt and the Grey Knights waited. His expression had already returned to its default look of mild boredom. "It's done," he said simply. Brother Captain Vortigern stared up at the sky where the cosmic entity had been. "By the Emperor's grace," he whispered. "What manner of power did we just witness?" Hellbrun's calculating eyes never left Saitama's face. "You destroyed it completely." "Pretty much." Saitama rolled his shoulder as if working out a minor kink. It was actually kind of fun. "For a second there, I thought it might be a real challenge. You speak of defeating a cosmic entity as though it were nothing more than swatting an insect," Hellbrunt said, his voice tight with controlled fear and awe. Saitama shrugged. "That's kind of my whole problem. Everything's too easy." The Inquisitor composed himself, straightening his high-collared coat. The entity mentioned a dimensional gateway, a way between realities. "Yeah, I guess that's how I got here in the first place. I was chasing that thing, or a piece of it anyway, and went through some kind of portal." "Then perhaps," Hellbrand said carefully, "the key to sending you home lies not with Mechanicus technology, but with interdimensional entities such as the one you just defeated." Saitama considered this. "So, I need to find another one of those things, perhaps. Or perhaps the residual energy from this encounter could be harnessed. I will consult with the Mechanicus adepts immediately. For the first time, genuine hope flickered across Saitama's face. "You think you can do it? Send me home?" Hellbrand nodded slowly. "I believe it may now be possible. Yes." In the aftermath of the cosmic entity's defeat, Veus Magna entered a period of uncertain peace. The destruction of an entire hive city had left millions dead, and created a refugee crisis that strained the planet's resources. Yet, the victory over such an incomprehensible threat had elevated the cult of the Saint, of the One Punch, to unprecedented heights. Icons bearing Saitama's likeness appeared in every shrine and chapel. Street preachers proclaimed him the Emperor's champion, sent to remind humanity of the divine power that protected them. Some went further, whispering that perhaps he was not sent by the Emperor at all, but was something else entirely, something beyond even the master of mankind. The Inquisition and Ecclesiarchy worked tirelessly to contain these more heretical interpretations, but the faith of the common people proved difficult to channel. They had seen their saint defeat threats that imperial doctrine had taught them were insurmountable. How could their worldview not be shaken? 3 weeks after the cosmic entity's destruction, Saitama stood in a vast Mechanicus chamber deep beneath the surface of Veus Magna. The room hummed with arcane energy, coitators the size of Habi blocks processing data at speeds that would have melted lesser machine spirits. At the centre stood a circular platform ringed with devices that defied easy description, a fusion of imperial technology and reverse-engineered Xenos artifacts. Archmegos Dominus Veneratus 9 approached his mechadendrites writhing with apparent excitement. "The calculations are complete," he announced, his vocalizer rendering the words in a blend of Gothic and binary K. "We have isolated the unique energy signature of your home dimension based on residual readings from your cellular structure and the interdimensional particles left by the cosmic entity's destruction." Saitama, dressed in his now iconic yellow suit and white cape, nodded. "So this machine will send me home. In theory, yes. It will open a temporary breach in the barriers between realities, allowing passage to the specific dimensional coordinates we have calculated. And it won't, destroy the universe or anything." The Archmaos made a sound like grinding gears that might have been laughter. "The risk of catastrophic dimensional collapse is within acceptable parameters. That's not exactly reassuring," Saitama muttered. From the observation gallery that ringed the chamber, Inquisitor Hellbrand watched with an unreadable expression. Beside him stood Governor Hellbane, Brother Captain Vortigern, and representatives from various imperial organizations that had developed a vested interest in the bald hero. "Are we certain this is the wisest course?" the governor asked quietly. "To surrender such a powerful asset," Hellbrand repeated. "He is not a weapon to be wielded, Governor. He is a force of nature, and like all forces of nature, he is as dangerous as he is beneficial." "But the good he could do for the Imperium," Hellbane protested. "Consider the theological implications," Hellbrand countered. "Already cults form around him. What happens when those cults spread to other worlds? When people begin to question why the Emperor in all his divine power does not simply defeat the enemies of mankind with a single blow, as our visitor does, the governor pulled heresy. Precisely, the Imperium is built on faith and sacrifice, on the understanding that victory requires blood and pain and death. What happens to that foundation when a being appears who trivializes all conflict?" Below on the chamber floor, a familiar figure approached Saitama. Kalia, the hive ganganger who had appointed herself his guide, looked small and fragile beside the machine priests and their towering apparatus. "So, you're really leaving?" she said, her voice steady despite the moisture gathering in her eyes. Saitama nodded. "Yeah, it's time to go home. Will you remember us? Remember this place?" A half smile touched the hero's lips. "Kind of hard to forget a galaxy where everyone's constantly at war with demons and aliens and each other." Kaya laughed, though the sound held little humour. "I suppose at Island," she hesitated, then removed something from around her neck, a small medallion bearing the Imperial Aquala. "Take this to remember the Imperium by Saitama accepted it with surprising gentleness. Thanks, it's been interesting." The Archmeos signalled to his tech priests. "We are ready to begin the dimensional breach procedure. Please stand on the central platform." Saitama stepped onto the indicated spot. The machinery around him began to hum louder, energy coils glowing with building power. Tech priests chanted binary invocations, appeasing the machine spirits for the heretical calculations they were being forced to perform. "Wait," a voice called from the chamber entrance. All heads turned to see Cardinal Drovan hurrying forward, his ornate robes flapping around his thin legs. Behind him came acolytes bearing incense burners and sacred texts. "The saint cannot depart without the Emperor's blessing," the cardinal insisted, approaching the platform. Saitama looked uncomfortable. "I'm not really a saint, you know. The Emperor works through many vessels," Droven replied, raising his hands. "Some know their purpose, some do not, but all serve his divine will." The cardinal began to inone a prayer, his acolytes joining in with practiced harmony. The words echoed through the chamber, competing with the mechanical drone of the dimensional apparatus. From his position in the observation gallery, Inquisitor Hellbrand tensed. Something was wrong. The cardinal's movements seemed too deliberate, his words carrying an undertone that did not match the standard imperial liturgy. "Captain," he said sharply to the Grey Knight at his side, "do you sense it?" Brother Captain Vortigern's eyes narrowed beneath his psychic hood. Warp interference, subtle but growing. Below, the cardinal's prayer reached a crescendo. As the final words left his lips, his eyes suddenly glowed with internal fire. His skin split along invisible seams, peeling back to reveal not blood and bone, but writhing warp energy barely contained in human form. "For the glory of Tezinch, changer of ways." The thing that had been Cardinal Droven screamed, "The saint shall not depart, but ascend." The acolytes transformed as well, their flesh melting and reforming into the distinctive shapes of pink horrors, lesser demons of the chaos god of change and sorcery. They cavorted around the platform, casting eldritch energies into the Mechanicus device. "Throne of Terror," Governor Hellbane gasped. The cardinal was a demon host all along, not a host. Brother Captain Vortigern corrected grimly, drawing his nemesis force sword, a greater demon in disguise, hiding its nature through sorcerous means. It must have been planning this for weeks. On the chamber floor, the tech priests scattered in terror as their precious machine was corrupted by warp energy. The carefully calculated dimensional breach began to warp and twist, its destination coordinates shifting under the demon's influence. Saitama watched all this with mild annoyance. Seriously, right when I was about to go home, the demon that had been Cardinal Droven grew in size, its form abandoning any pretense of humanity as it towered over the chamber. Great feathered wings unfurled from its back, and its aven head turned to fix a multifaceted gaze on Saitama. "The changer of ways has foreseen your potential." It thundered in a voice that caused blood to leak from the ears of nearby humans. "You shall not return to your mundane existence, but ascend to demonhood. Your power wedded to the warp shall remake this galaxy in glorious change." The dimensional breach, now corrupted by chaos energies, began to expand uncontrollably. Instead of opening a precise portal to Saitama's home dimension, it tore wildly at the fabric of reality, creating a growing rift through which the gibbering faces of warp entities could be glimpsed. Inquisitor Hellbrand activated his wrist-mounted Vox, initiate containment protocol, Omega Malachite, seal the chamber. Blast doors began to close around the chamber's exits. Emergency rooms flashed as the facility prepared to detach itself from the main hive structure, ready to be scuttled if the demonic incursion could not be contained. Brother Captain Vortigern and his Grey Knights leapt from the observation gallery, their armor systems allowing them to survive the 30-meter drop with ease. They formed a cordon around the expanding breach, force weapons raised as they began to chant their sacred litanies of banishment. Through it all, Saitama stood on the platform watching the chaos unfold with an expression of growing irritation. "I've had enough of this," he finally said. The bald hero stepped forward, facing the greater daemon of Tench directly. The warp entity towered over him, its form constantly shifting and changing as reality struggled to contain its impossible nature. "You cannot resist the will of Tinch," the daemon proclaimed. "The strands of fate have already been rewoven. The dimensional breach will not lead to your home, but to the crystal labyrinth of the Lord of Change himself." Saitama cracked his knuckles. "You know, I was actually starting to like this place. Sure, it's grim and everyone's always fighting, but the people here try their best with what they've got." He glanced at Kalia, who had taken cover behind a fallen Coitator. "Some of them are even pretty decent." "Meaningless sentiment," the daemon scoffed. "All mortals are but pawns in the great game." "Yeah, I keep hearing that. Games, thrones, gods, emperors." Saitama shook his head. "But at the end of the day, it's just bullies picking on people who can't fight back." The hero raised his fist. The gesture was casual, almost lazy, but something about it caused the demon to falter. "I'm going to punch you now," Saitama stated matter-of-factly. And then I'm going to fix that portal and go home." "You cannot," the demon began. "No serious series. Serious punch." The blow connected with the demon's ever-shifting chest. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself shuddered, as the force of the impact transferred not just into the demon's physical manifestation, but into its warp presence as well. The greater daemon of Tinch exploded. Not just its material form, but its warp essence. The blow travelled through dimensions, striking the very concept of the damon's existence. In the crystal labyrinth of Sionch, deep within the warp, an echo of the punch rippled through the impossible architecture, causing momentary consternation to the Chaos God himself. The corrupted dimensional breach pulsed and shrank, the wild energies that had been tearing it apart suddenly contained by the aftermath of Saitama's blow. The pink horrors screeched as they were drawn back into the collapsing rift, their forms dissolving as they lost their anchor in the material universe. In moments, the chamber was quiet again, save for the groans of injured tech priests and the subsiding alarms of the containment systems. Saitama turned to Archmeos Veneratus, who had emerged from behind a protective energy shield. "Is the machine broken?" The Archmagos extended several mechadendrites to interface with the dimensional apparatus. "Negative," he responded after a moment. "The daemon's interference has been neutralized. The calculations remain intact, though the power systems are strained. So, it can still send me home. Affirmative, though the window of opportunity will be brief." Saitama nodded and returned to the central platform. He looked around at the chamber, at the grey knight standing with weapons still raised, at Inquisitor Hellbrand watching from above, at Kalia emerging hesitantly from her hiding place. "Well," he said, "it's been interesting." The Archmagos began the activation sequence again. The machine hummed to life, energy coils glowing as they powered up. This time the dimensional breach formed as intended, a perfect circular portal hovering above the platform. Through it, Saitama could see the familiar skyline of Zed City, his home. He turned to face the assembled Imperial dignitaries one last time. "Thanks for trying to help me get back. Sorry about all the trouble." Inquisitor Hellbrand stepped forward. "The Imperium owes you a debt, Saitama. You have saved countless lives." "Just doing my job," the hero replied with a shrug. "Or my hobby, I guess." He turned to Kalia and gave her a small smile. "Try to stay out of trouble." The gang girl nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Saitama looked back at the portal, at the world he had left behind. Then, with a casual step that belied the momentous nature of the action, he crossed the threshold between dimensions. The portal collapsed behind him with a sound like a sigh, leaving only empty air where it had been. In the silence that followed, Inquisitor Helber turned to Brother Captain Vortigern. "It is done." The Grey Knight nodded. "For better or worse, the anomaly has returned to its own reality." "And what of the theological implications?" Governor Helbane asked. "The cults that have formed around him will not simply disappear. They will be managed." Hellbrand replied, "The ecclesiarchy will adapt the narrative. The saint of the one punch will become a legend. A tale of the Emperor's messenger who came in the planet's darkest hour, and then returned to his side when his task was complete." "A convenient fiction," Vortigern observed. "All religion is convenient fiction, Brother Captain," the Inquisitor said quietly. "What matters is that it serves the Imperium's needs." The Archmagos approached, his meshindrite still interfacing with the dimensional apparatus. "Inquisitor, there is something you should know. The dimensional coordinates we calculated, the reality to which we returned the anomaly. It is not as distant as we first believed." Hellbrand frowned. "Explain." "Our universe and his appear to exist in parallel, separated by what the ancient texts call the membrane of reality. This membrane is not uniform in thickness. There are places where it grows thin, where realities bleed into one another. Are you suggesting he could return?" The Archmagos' vocalizer emitted a static-laced sound of uncertainty. "I am suggesting that what has happened once could happen again. The barriers between dimensions have been weakened by these events. It islanded statistically possible." Hellbrand was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Establish monitoring protocols. If there is any sign, any hint of another breach, I want to know immediately." "As you command," the Inquisitor turned away, his gaze distant. The Imperium had survived the visit of the being called Saitama. It had bent, but not broken under the theological strain of his impossible power. But Hellbrant knew that the ripples of his presence would continue to spread outward, changing the Imperium in ways both subtle and profound. And perhaps someday the bold hero would return, the saint of the one punch, neither daemon nor angel, but something else entirely, a force of nature in human form, a hero for fun. In a simple apartment in Z-City, Saitama sat cross-legged on his futon, watching television with a bowl of udon noodles in his hands. His bald head gleamed in the artificial light, his expression as impassive as ever. On the wall hung a small medallion bearing the Imperial Aquila, its double-headed eagle catching the light as a breeze from the open window stirred the air. Outside, sirens wailed. The Monster Association was attacking again, and heroes were being called to respond. Saitama sighed, set down his noodles and stood up. "Guess I should get going," he said to the empty room. As he donned his yellow suit and white cape, his gaze lingered briefly on the medallion. For a moment something like nostalgia crossed his features, quickly replaced by his usual look of mild boredom. "At least the monsters here might give me a good fight," he muttered. But even as he spoke the words, he knew they were not true. After facing demons and cosmic entities, after shattering dimensional barriers with his fists, what challenge could the monsters of his world possibly present? Perhaps that was the true curse of his power. Not just that he could defeat any foe with a single punch, but that in doing so he had removed all meaning from the victory. Saitama stepped out onto his balcony and launched himself into the sky with a casual leap. As he soared toward the site of the monster attack, his white cape billowing behind him like the wings of the Imperial Aquila, he couldn't help but wonder if somewhere in the grim darkness of that other universe, Inquisitor Hellbrant was still watching for signs of his return, and whether if the dimensional barriers thinned again, he might just step through once more. Not because he was needed, or because he sought greater challenges, but simply because in that universe of unending war, he had found something unexpected, a place where his power had purpose.